It is a little bit comical that it's been like 8 months, August of last year till now. Yeah, like 8 months that we've had this house framed up and we have not had stairs. We've been climbing up this ladder. It's just one of those things that like everything else took priority, getting the utilities in, getting the roof on, getting the doors on, trying to keep the project moving forward in lots of other aspects. And the stairs just kind of got pushed aside because who needs them anyway? But it is time finally to build some stairs. So I have some 2x12 by 20 foot long stringers here, 4 of them. And I've never built stairs before, but I've watched a few YouTube videos, so how hard could it possibly be? And I'm gonna try to do this pretty much by myself. So we're gonna see how it all turns out. So step 1, gotta measure our rise here from the concrete. Once I add my finished floor surface on this, we'll be sitting at around 123 3/4 inch, something like that. So I think that's what I'm going to use as my rise for the staircase. My handy construction calculator makes this pretty easy. If I put 123 3/4 inch, hit rise, and then just hit stair, it's gonna give me all the stuff I need to know. So that's riser height, 6 7/8, which is pretty close to 7, which is ideal. 18 risers total. Riser plus or minus 0 inches, so no tolerance between them. No variation. Tread width is 11. I had that input in there as the default. 17 treads. Tread plus or minus is 0 variation. I don't know what open means, but someone can put that in the comments. Stringer's got to be at least 220 inches long. Incline is 32 degrees. Run is 187 inches. All really good information. So then it just kind of repeats it. So to mark all this out, I bought these stair gauges for this framing square, and I thought that's what I was going to use, but actually now that I'm looking at them, they're really too small. They are not deep enough to engage on the actual flat part of the board. It hits the round over. This is actually something I saw Kyle Summonhorse from R&R Buildings complain about in his stair video, which has like 2 million views. And now I totally understand what he's talking about, why you need like big gauges to hit the flat part of the board. All these little tiny ones are no good. So I think I'm gonna make my own pitch block using the framing square out of a scrap piece of plywood and a flat runner here with some wood that I'll screw onto it. I think that'll keep the pitch block where it needs to be better than these chintzy little stair gauges. My rise is 6 7/8. Run is 11. Just a sanity check, I'm gonna calculate my diagonal, what the length should be, and then measure this. 13 inches on the dot. Oh, that's easy. Yep, and we're right there. Cool. So I'm gonna cut this, leave the line. Now a trick that I saw both Kyle Stummenhorse and Awesome Framers Tim Euler do was basically mark tick marks every diagonal length of your block, which in my case is 13 inches, and that will give you tick marks to put your gauge block in between. That way you don't accumulate any error by trying to just eyeball the point on every one. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that too. I started a little bit back from the end because I want to cut this knot off eventually. So that's my first guy, and I'm just going to go down the road from there. Every 13 inches, I'll put a tick mark. Now I can just move along center between my 2 tick marks, and I don't have to worry about accumulating any error as I go. Framing is a really pretty physically demanding trade, but I think it's one of my favorite just because it does take a lot of thought and mental visualizing stuff. Plumbing is similar. I like plumbing for similar reasons. You really just got to be thinking 2 steps ahead all the time. I'm all marked out with my pitch block, and I decided I would mock up, just for some sanity check here, to put my rough tread on and the finished surface. I'm going to be using 1 1/8 rim board for my rough tread, and then I'm going to end up putting about a 1/4 inch thick of like LVP wear surface on top of that when it's all done. So I mocked that up here. Same thing with my riser. I'm using just an 1 1/2 inch dimensional lumber for that, which means I need to shorten the cut at the top of the stairs here by 1 1/2 inch so that this tread right here is the right width. Otherwise, this would have to be 1 1/2 inch longer to cover this rough riser right here. So I'm cutting that off, and I'm doing a similar thing at the bottom. There I had to take my rough and finished tread thickness, which is 1 3/8 inches, off this bottom edge right here to drop the whole stair down by the width of this tread. Now for the nerve-wracking part, which is cutting these all out. I'll start with my framing saw and end with my jigsaw, but I only have 4 of these stringers and I need 4 to make the staircase. So if I mess up on one, back to the lumberyard and another $45 down the drain. These used to be like 70 or 80, so I'm pretty happy they've dropped since post-COVID prices. So the stringer's cut, that was not bad at all. Now for the moment of truth, actually putting it up against the wall. This one's gonna be a little bit off because I know that there is a big dip in the concrete as we approach the wall. It kind of just drops off. And so I know there's gonna be at least like a 3/8 inch shim or something I'm gonna have to put under this, but I wanna see how it sits up against the top there. And this first stringer is going right up against the wall. It's gonna get screwed to the wall with a 2x4 spacer in between so we can slide drywall down, and then a trim skirt board as well, which is gonna be 3/4 inch thick. All right, here goes nothing. These are definitely quite a bit lighter after you cut everything out of them. Definitely gonna be a big staircase. It's one thing seeing it on the computer, but another thing seeing it in person. It is big. I'm glad we planned well, because otherwise our front door wouldn't open. All right, we're set in place there. I put a little brace up there to hold it. I have it sitting at the correct riser height relative to our floor platform. Handy thing about having 14-inch floor joists is you actually have full support on your stair stringers, which is kind of nice. I'll probably just screw through the back of these, but I also have some special hangers I'll show you in a minute too. But I'm looking pretty parallel with the stringer there, within a few degrees, I would say. And then on this end, I added just one little shim to bring that thing up, and I think we're gonna be good with that. So I'm happy with how this one is looking. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and copy this 3 more times, and then we will figure out how to get everything stood up. I still have to make all my treads and risers too. Like I said, treads coming out of our 1 1/8 rim board, risers will be 1.5 inch material. The first one that I copied, I mistakenly, I don't know what I was thinking, I lined up this back edge rather than worrying about the points with the flat portion of this underlying board. And so this top pattern here is crowned pretty good. I should have probably picked a straighter board for my pattern, but that left a bunch of excess material on these treads. So I had to go back and trim like 1/8 of an inch off every one of these things to get it to line up correctly. After I kind of pulled this in, and then I've been using my square here to line my point up with my flat edge, and then I'm screwing it down before I trace everything. So I want to get all those with it plus or minus a 1/16, I would say, and then I'll throw a screw in like this. Then when I trace it, it should be accurate. Got all 4 stringers cut finally. I think they turned out pretty well. This is one of those situations where I wish I had a beam saw, like one of those gigantic circular saws. You could stack 3 or 4 of these things together, screw them so they don't move, and then just cut them all in one pass. I did it the poor man's route, which is using one as a template and then cutting all 4 individually, but it's definitely not gonna be as perfect as if you cut them all in one pass. First world problems. Anyway, the last 2 cuts I need to make on my center 2 stringers here are a notch out the bottom for a ledger to put on the floor. Because I can't just nail these ends of these stringers into this concrete floor, I gotta put a ledger down, and then I'm gonna tap con that down to my floor. I'm putting a fairly wide one on, a 2x8, because we are very close to our radiant tubing. I was thinking about it. This is the real reason that I put the stairs off for so long. We forgot to mark the radiant tubing where the stairs gonna land. We did it everywhere else for all the walls and everything that we were concerned about at the time, but forgot this. So I wanted to wait until we had our radiant system fired up, which meant having the water system done, having the propane in. So that kind of dragged the stair build out. But once we had it all fired up, then I borrowed a friend's heat gun. He came over, we had the system cranked up with a nice cold slab to start, and you could see the red hot tubing circuits in the slab with the heat gun, which was pretty cool. A little bit more, and you're on it. So then we just took a pencil and outlined them, and then I had a good indication of where all the tubing was. So I'm not gonna drill that deep anyway, just in case, but that is the real reason that we put the stairs off so long. So it is what it is. Did not wanna risk puncturing that tubing just blindly drilling it. Before I lay everything down and start screwing a couple risers on to get this thing roughly assembled for lifting, I cleaned this wall out really good, vacuumed all the bottom of the stud bays and this crack along the edge of the slab, and all up in those bays well in the rim board. After I put this stringer against the wall, it's gonna be pretty tough to slide our Workwear insulation in here. It's a pretty good friction fit, and so I don't wanna have to be forcing insulation up through here and not have it be a good fit. So where the stringer contacts the wall, I'm just gonna go ahead and put some insulation. I should be out of the way of any future electrical wiring and stuff, but it'll just make our lives a little bit easier when we actually go to insulate the whole house. I think we're finally ready to assemble. I've got my stringers laid out. I'll put my bottom cleat board on and probably 2 or 3 risers, at least temporarily, with some screws. Then I have a secret weapon up my sleeve to help me lift this whole thing up against the ledger by myself. This looks a lot bigger once it's all laid out. I cut myself some 13-inch spacer blocks to make sure my spacing is even. My outside width of my staircase is 45 inches. So let's get this thing on here. These first couple I think are gonna be kind of tricky because I don't really have anything to go by. Get my outside guys first. If you're asking yourself why I'm using pressure treated treads and regular stringers, well, it's because I accidentally ordered 2x8s for the deck joists instead of 2x10s, and I didn't realize it, so now the 2x8s are my stair risers. And I have to buy more 2x10s. It worked out okay. I'm gonna have a few extra of these, but I'll use them someday on a tree house or something. Before we hoist this big heavy thing up, let's go over the game plan, what we're gonna do once we get it up there. I've got the 4 stringer locations marked out, and my hanging techniques are gonna be a little bit different for each one of these. On the middle 2, I'm gonna be able to use a slopable joist hanger. These were left over from our roof install. On this left one though, because of this metal interference, I can't use that, plus it's too close to this wall. So I actually bought a stair stringer hanger. This is a Simpson LSC. But I realized that it still won't work because of this metal interference. This sits out about 1/8 of an inch. This would be sticking on top of it, plus nails on top of that. Just wouldn't be very clean. It would kind of throw the staircase out of alignment. So instead, I'll just chisel the wood out a little bit to clear this, and then I'm gonna put 2 long Simpson structural screws through the back side of this LVL into the stringer. And then for the right side here, I'm right up against this insulation. I could potentially use that metal bracket here, but I'm going to be screwing this stringer to the wall at every stud going down here. So I'm really not worried about a hanger up there at all, to be honest. As far as hoisting goes, I'm certainly not lifting this up by myself. I have this 2x6 up here. I'm gonna run a strap around the top of that, and I have a strap winch that I will loop down around one of these risers, probably that riser right there. So I'll get this thing hoisted up here, put some structural screws in it to hold it where I want it, and then I will finish putting my joist hangers on to make sure that they are perfectly aligned. I bought this thing at a yard sale, not knowing what I would need it for, and really glad I got it. You can lower both uphill and downhill in a controllable fashion. All right, I took a couple measurements, and I think before I'm even gonna start this, I gotta change my setup here. I'm gonna run out of travel here because of this length of this strap here and how high this step is compared to where my hoisting board is. So I think I'm gonna have to move that board back here to where the stairs come down lower. I'm gonna flip it around so my handle is down here and I can crank it on from the ground level, and I think that'll do it. Let's give it a shot. Now for the real moment of truth. I definitely am gonna keep the camera rolling through this whole thing because who knows what it's gonna capture. The unfortunate part about turning this upside down is that I'm lifting instead of pulling down on it. I wonder if I can get on the stairs and lift myself with this thing. Oh shit, I forgot I still need to carve out the end of this thing. I'll have to do that up in the air, I guess. Okay, that's about where it needs to be. I just need to get the top of those stringers perfectly to my line where they need to be, and then I'm gonna go ahead and just start fastening it in with screws to hold it up. before I put the joist hangers on. That wasn't so bad at all, actually. That wasn't bad at all. This makes it easy. This thing's swaying around here like nothing. Got a clamp on that where it needs to be, and then I'm gonna be using this monstrous 6-inch SDWS Simpson screw in from the back there. I'll put 2 of these in, I think is really all that should take. And then I'll go to the wall here and I'd have more 6-inchers for that too. I might be able to get away with 5. I have some of those left over. But I have that 2x4 spacer, so I gotta remember I'm going through 3 inches before I even get into the wall, so. Man, those things suck it in tight. That is awesome. Those things are amazing. The bottom is levitating a bit now, so I'm gonna take the tension off that, which is holding it up, and then I will start screwing to the wall. You can see it's pulled out a little bit, so I gotta get that flush back up to the wall. Guess I should push it against the wall now. How can I clamp that in there? I'm gonna push this over before I drop it. That way friction can hold it. I'm starting these guys off with just a screw at the top to hold it in place, and then finishing it off with the palm nailer with the right nails. These are big, beefy, 3.5-inch long nails. They're not messing around. I may actually need to trim the top of these off anyway, or I'm gonna have to carve my treads out around to clear this. Didn't realize that these stuck up above my tread. All right, check this palm nailer out. This thing is an invaluable tool for putting these hangers in. No need to swing a hammer. And it's in, just like that. Saves me a lot of energy. Swinging a hammer, that is for darn sure. Even on just a couple hangers, it's worth it. Definitely gotta wear ear protection. This thing is loud. With the top anchored, I can anchor the bottom. I've kind of counterbored out some depth here, and I'm just using these, I guess they're 5/16 anchors. I'm not gonna go too deep. 1 inch of embedment's really all I need, just to keep this thing from sliding if it ever needed to. But I really don't anticipate that ever happening with it being screwed to the wall and so solidly supported up at the top, but better be safe than sorry. And it just so happens that the stair landing falls right between 2 radiant circuits, which is really nice. I'm still gonna stay on this side of this board, which is like smack in the middle of my marking. So should not be hitting any tubing, and not to mention they're deeper than 1 inch anyway. So we should be good on that front. We're anchored up top, we're anchored down low, we're anchored on the side. I'm not a dad yet, but if I was, I probably would say something like, that's not going anywhere. Now the next step is putting all the risers and treads on. I'm gonna montage through that because who doesn't love a good montage? Last one, here we go. The Great Stuff Pro has redeemed itself. If you happen to catch my HVAC video, you'll see I did not have a good time with it in that video. The problem was the gun. I got a new gun. This is the Great Stuff Pro brand gun to go with their cans, and that seemed to do the trick. It's gonna be so nice to not have to climb a ladder anymore. And just like that, we have ourselves a set of stairs. Elena's dad Mark was here and helped put up this temporary railing that actually is sturdier than I would have guessed. But we'll do something similar to this for railing anyway, where it'll be mounted sort of on the side of the staircase. Not sure if we're gonna do cables yet or vertical balusters, but that's a decision for another day. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. The right side that's screwed to the wall is very stiff. However, the left side, if you're walking up it like a normal person, you'll never notice it, but if you start to jump and stomp on it, There's definitely some deflection on that left side, and of course that's because it's an unsupported span. And so I think I'm going to do that pony wall mid-span to help support that, and I think that will definitely stiffen it up. It'll kind of break up this large triangle underneath the stairs anyway into a more usable space, and then the triangular space, I think I'm gonna do some sort of like slide out drawer or something so that we can actually get some use out of that. But that's a project for another day. I think I'm gonna call this one quits. It is so nice not to be climbing a ladder every time we go to the second floor. I can't even tell you how awesome that is. And it's just something so simple as stairs, but we've put it off for this long. I'm glad that it all turned out well, and we missed our radiant tubing, which was the main reason it took this long in the first place. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.